Welcome to LexiCast, a podcast designed to help you grow in your legal practice, with weekly updates on current topics, trends, and practical insights. Perfect for listening on the go. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission is to take your source material, the articles, the research, all of it, and really distill the intelligence you need right now. And for this deep dive, we're focusing squarely on the legal profession. We're tackling a question that seems simple but isn't. How do the words you choose day in and day out actually, well, rewrite your own professional reality?
It's such a critical question.
It really is. The legal world has just been through this massive period of disruption, especially after 2020.
Oh, for sure.
And that change, it didn't just put a spotlight on, operational problems. It really showed a deep, deep crisis in communication.
Exactly. And we're going way beyond just etiquette here. We're looking at the hard neuroscience to show why the words you choose, and just as importantly, the timing of those words, are probably the most powerful tool you have.
Right.
What's fascinating here is when you dig into the data, you see this almost perfect link between professional burnout and law and the communication styles that we've all just, come to accept as standard.
You mean the aggressive emails, the late-night demands?
All of it. It's not just unpleasant. We can now see that it's a measurable driver of psychological ill health. We have to understand the science behind that suffering.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I can hear a lawyer listening right now thinking, look, my job is to deliver hard truths. How is talking about happiness relevant to my bottom line?
And that's the core misconception, isn't it? The source material for this deep dive, it actually came from a personal journey of someone navigating burnout.
Yeah.
Of trying to build a career in law that wasn't, completely debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And the key takeaway is that happiness isn't this soft, fluffy luxury. It's a strategic advantage. It's quantifiable.
I know the source material uses this symbol, the confetti lawyer. Can you explain that a bit?
It's really just a symbol for interrupting the old way of doing things. It's about being intentional. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect your career or your well-being to magically change. The confetti is that deliberate interruption.
A strategic advantage. How do we quantify that?
Well, the research points to three huge things. Happier people are more productive. They make better, more nuanced decisions, which is critical when you're advising a client.
Absolutely.
And they're just healthier. They live longer. So this isn't about feeling good. It's about improving how lawyers live and work every single day.
Which brings us back to the brain itself. We all grew up with that saying, sticks and stones may break my bones.
But words can never hurt me.
Yeah, exactly.
And scientifically, that is just flat out wrong. I mean, the impact of negative words on the human psyche, it registers in the brain in the exact same way as physical harm.
Wow.
And in this digital world with emails and notifications all the time, we're constantly streaming these harmful words into our nervous systems.
So when we talk about neuroscience, what we're really talking about here is persuasion, right? It's a brain job. Understanding the chemicals that drive perception, that's a tactical advantage.
It is. The source material talks about the DOC hormones. That's dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins.
Right.
And you don't need a PhD in chemistry, but you do need to understand their function. Dopamine gives you that little reward hit when you cross something off your to-do list.
So if we know that, how do we use it with a client?
You structure your communication to give them those little hits. Positive framing stimulates those DOS hormones. Negative words, harsh words, they do the opposite. They release stress hormones like cortisol.
And that's where loss aversion comes in, which feels like the most critical piece of this for lawyers.
It is absolutely the most critical piece. Behavioral economics has proven that the negative feeling of a loss is twice as intense as the positive feeling of an equal gain.
Twice as intense.
Yes. So if you, as a lawyer, only focus on the risks, on the downsides, your client's brain just gets stuck there. It gets stuck in the negative, and rational decision-making becomes almost impossible.
But that's the job, right? We have a duty to warn them of risk.
Of course.
So that old school training of just being brutally blunt, you're saying it's actually neurochemically inefficient. It works against the goal.
It absolutely does. And the paradox is that the research shows one of the biggest drivers of stress for lawyers is communication from other lawyers.
Oh.
The aggressiveness, the late timing, it's all perceived as an attack on the nervous system.
The sources had a great, or maybe a terrible example of this, a family law email exchange.
Yes. One lawyer tries to be sensible, suggests a phone call to find a way forward for the clients.
And the response is just this cold adversarial wall. Something like, I prefer everything in writing. This is a family matter, not a DV matter. They need to settle and move on.
And what's the strategic failure there? It's not just rude. These clients are parents. They might have to communicate for another decade.
You've just poisoned the well from day one.
You've poisoned the well, guaranteed inefficiency, and you set this incredibly negative, loss-averse tone for the entire negotiation.
We see this tension in court, too. There was that bankruptcy case, Below and Bellow.
Right, where the judge published the lawyer's emails.
And criticized them for being too informal. Things like, please have the hearing relisted, which is a command, not a request, and signing off kind regards.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the quandary for lawyers now. We live in this informal, post-COVID world of texts and quick emails.
But the judiciary, rightly, still demands this incredible precision and formality. Yeah. It's a huge risk if your casual email ends up as evidence.
It is.
Okay, so the good news is there are things we can do. The source material lays out 5 really practical suggestions. Tip 1, watch the lawyer lingo.
Yes, and this is so simple. Just get rid of the clutter. Words like henceforth, herewith, they just slow down comprehension.
And what about how we refer to the parties?
This is a great one. In your letters, in your negotiations, stop saying my client and your client.
Use their names.
Use their names, Sally and Matthew. It immediately changes the energy from a battle to a problem that needs solving.
And for goodness sake, stop using dear sirs.
Please, it's 2024. Dear colleague works perfectly well. It's formal, it's simple, it's not problematic. The smartest lawyers make complicated things simple.
Okay, tip number 2. Lead with the good news.
Because of loss aversion, you have to prime the brain positively. So start your email with good news, or please don't worry, just touching base.
And this works in court too, right?
Absolutely. In front of a judge, lead with what you agree on. Your Honor, the parties agree on most of the facts. There are just 3 small issues left for you to decide. You've just framed the entire case as manageable, solvable.
Tip number 3. This one is huge. Timing is everything.
The rule should be, nothing good comes from an email sent after 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Or maybe any day, really?
Honestly, yes. Think about it. That email about child changeover that you send at 5 p.m. on a Friday, you've just hijacked your client's entire weekend. They can't do anything about it, but they'll stew on it for 48 hours.
And it costs them that mental rest they need to be productive for you next week.
Exactly. Use the schedule send button. It's that simple.
Tip 4. Perfect your subject lines. They're such valuable real estate.
The first thing people see on their phone. So instead of, surnames and property settlement, which just screams stress.
Try what?
Try something personalized and informative. Good news. Peter's proposal is attached. Or next steps for Sally's affidavit. It just lowers the anxiety before they've even opened it.
Love that. And finally, tip 5. Times New Roman is not your best friend.
A wall of black text on a white page is just not how our brains are trained to process information anymore.
So what's the alternative?
Think visually. Alongside that long letter of advice, could you include a 1-page infographic with the 3 key takeaways, or a 2-minute video summary?
And the reason for that is risk mitigation.
That's the real benefit. If a client truly understands the advice because you've made it accessible, they're so much less likely to complain or misunderstand later.
It all comes down to being thoughtful, doesn't it?
It's intentional thoughtfulness. Taking a moment to think about the language, the timing, the audience, the neuro impact of your communication. That is the future of effective lawyering.
So the research is clear. The way lawyers communicate with each other is one of the biggest drivers of stress in the entire profession.
It really is.
So we want to leave you with the final thought, a challenge really. Given that knowledge, what is the one word choice, the one timing habit that you are going to change this week? What's one small thing you can do to improve your own well-being, lower your client's cortisol, and get better, more rational outcomes for everyone?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you'll choose your words and your timing carefully.
That's it for today's episode on LexiCast. If you're looking for more in-depth episodes that can also be claimed as CPD activities, check out our LexiCast CPD Plus page linked in this episode's notes. Follow us now to stay up to date, and we'll see you next time.